Hey everybody, it's Tim Miller from the Bulwark. I am back with my buddy Andrew Egger off of paternity leave. He has 19 children now, and that's a burden, but it's also a blessing. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. I got about 4 hours of sleep last night. Back in the office, first day, ready to rock. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. We've got a couple of things we want to talk to you about. First up is the Germans versus J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance was at the Munich Security Conference, where he was talking about how our allies in Europe are now the ones that are going against the side of freedom. Our European allies are now feeling Soviet. He compared them to the Soviets.
Now, to many of us on the other side of the Atlantic, it looks more and more like old entrenched interests hiding behind ugly Soviet-era words like misinformation and disinformation.
We've had some other videos. You can go watch Bill talk about this with Sarah Longlow and Eric Edelman. And there was a lot shameful about the J.D. Vance speech. I will start there. And the fact that it seems like this administration is aligned with Russia and not Ukraine and Europe is a big problem. He might have had one little point. Do I have to hand it to JD on one thing? So I guess before we get to the one thing we might have to hand it to him on, Andrew, did you concur with the broad assessment there of JD's appearance in Munich?
Yeah, no, I mean, of course, like it's, I think it's the latest in kind of a long string of sort of suggestions in this direction. And, the question was always like, is this just sort of like, red meat for the increasingly anti-Ukraine base? What will they do once they get in here? Maybe Marco Rubio as Secretary of State is helpful. Hey, you never know. But no, I mean, it really just kind of seems like they're going to act the way that we always expected them to act, and kind of, for the most part, take Putin's side on this, much more than certainly we would have hoped.
Yeah, and it's going to create huge tensions with Europe. And me and Bill talked about this on the pod today, and I think there are a lot of alarming potential consequences. Here's the thing, though. Here's my message to our European pals: is we don't have to make it as easy on the MAGAs as possible to attack you. And I am a little bit concerned as a content creator who does his best to get it right. Andrew, we do our best to get it right here, to be truthful. I feel like when I smear people, it's because they deserve it, and it's a fact-based smear. That said, it alarms me a little bit when I see some of the crackdown on information and crackdown on speech that we see in Europe, up in Canada too. You can't even watch Bulwark content on Instagram in Canada because of some of their laws. So I worry a little bit about some of this crackdown. And there was a 60 Minutes piece that has everybody on the MAGA right really riled up right now. And I got to tell you, I watched some of this video, and let's just watch some of it together, and we'll get on the other side.
Is it a crime to insult somebody in public?
Yes, it is.
And it's a crime to insult them online as well?
Yes.
The fine could be even higher. In the internet, if I insult you or a politician...
That sticks around forever.
Yeah.
If somebody posts something that's not true, and then somebody else reposts it or likes it, are they committing a crime?
Yeah, in the case of reposting, it is a crime as well, because the reader can't distinguish whether you just invented this or just reposted it. That's the same for us.
Inside, 6 armed officers searched a suspect's home, then seized his laptop and cell phone. Prosecutors say those electronics may have been used to commit a crime. The crime, posting a racist cartoon online. At the exact same time, across Germany, more than 50 similar raids played out.
Like, this whole scene to me, like, almost felt like it was, like, not real. I mean, like, the 60 Minutes interviewer is like, so if people lie, then you can take their phones away. And she's, like, kind of titillated, excited by this. And the whole thing to me, I'm just like, who's watching the watchers? I don't. And then they're, like, going to raid the house. They go and raid somebody's house for posting a racist meme. There are 6 armed police raiding the house. I don't. This to me feels like a bad slippery slope. Andrew, where are you?
Yeah, so I think there's like basically 2 different conversations happening here, right? And the one, it was kind of like the domestic conversation, which is that like a lot of the MAGA people are mad at CBS News in particular, and kind of like the interviewer and all this. And Margaret Brennan had a weird like monologue yesterday about how free speech might be bad, and that kind of stuff. That's one conversation, right? But I think like the more maybe interesting and fruitful conversation is not like the MAGAs versus, their enemies, or the MAGAs versus the Euros. I mean, I just think like this is yet another demonstration of why the real dividing line is like, do you have a constitution that actually like makes free speech happen? Or don't you? Because if you don't, then it always kind of seems like to one ruling group or another that there might be like this or that good reason, fruitful reason, like a reasonable reason to crack down on this kind of free speech or that kind of free speech, or say, well, sure, we have free speech. You just can't. That just doesn't cover these sorts of things or whatever. It doesn't cover insults online. It certainly doesn't cover misinformation online. And you end up in a situation where like what we see in Germany or what we see in Great Britain, where you have these kind of like really sort of smug, like bureaucratic officers of the law, going door to door with no knock raids, or no, I guess they knocked. There's not a no knock raid, but a raid. Armed people in your home saying, "I heard that you called a politician a penis online." I mean, it's just it leads very quickly to like this situation that I think that you say you're a little bit concerned about it. I think you're kind of like letting our people down easy a little bit. I found it kind of I find that stuff very repulsive personally.
Oh yeah, I think I think I was just being a smart ass. I know it is like I'm not trying to let anybody down easy. I was appalled. I was watching this video and I'm like, what is happening? I mean, again, so we're messaging about this offline. Give you a little behind the curtain. We were messaging about this in our Slack, and Bill sent this note from like some international law expert who said that the 60 Minutes excerpt is a little misleading. German law doesn't criminalize insults in general, but only incitement to hatred, which is a form of insult designed to target someone with a campaign of harassment. It's like, okay, but like the interview was pretty clear. I mean, like the people, the bureaucrats there didn't hedge when they're like, it is illegal to insult. And then they even expanded on that. And they're like, it's illegal to retweet an insult or to share someone else's insults, which to me is crazy. And then
they're sort of chortling about it. And
they're chortling about it. And then it's like, okay, well, incitement to hatred, like that's like not as clear of a line as it like seems, right? Like, okay, like you could maybe sell me on this if it's like a direct incitement to hatred, right? Or a direct incitement to violence, maybe not hatred, like, where it's like, it is not legal to be like, go to Andrew's house and kill him. All right. Like, okay, like maybe there should be some rules or some platform rules about how people can do all that. But like, it's, the eye is in the beholder a lot of times on like what is an incitement to hatred. And this is where like free speech matters. Free speech is important. And where I think it's just like legitimately radicalizing. Like if I was a German, I could see how somebody would be radicalized enough to be like, man, maybe I should give AFD a listen. Like I'm not going to be for AFD, but like I can understand why somebody would look at this and be like, these people are storming my house and taking my phone. I just, there has to be a different way to do this. And I think that I have some other ideas about more productive things to do, but I don't know if you have anything else to add on that.
Yeah, no, I really like the American system where the government is forcibly restrained by a gigantic body, by first of all, our Constitution, and then a giant body of judicial precedent, reaffirming all that stuff. They're just not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to end up in a situation where the guy who gets to decide whether what you're saying is hate speech or whatever is like your local cop in your home with a gun, like, and maybe like, I don't know. It's just like as an American, it is nice to have to have inherited sort of like the cultural gag reflex of like, absolutely not, you fucking sickos. Like what's going on over there? And I will also say one other thing, which is that like it becomes, and very well may become in Germany, it becomes kind of like this self-fulfilling prophecy of destruction where you're right. I think it does, cause more and more people to give, a far right party like AFD a look or a listen. And then, say we end up in a situation where they take power. Now you're in a place where basically you have Elon Musk running the country with all those same systems, with all those same rules, with none of the guarantees for speech. I mean, and that's a problem, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
you want AFD and Elon Musk enforcing these laws? Like, imagine
right.
If you are a viewer that is sympathetic to that 60 Minutes video, imagine instead of those three people, you have three Doge bros sitting there. I mean, like Elon Musk has already said he thinks that people should be arrested who speak out against them. I don't like again, incitement to hatred. I'm just saying. I think that if this was the law here in America and there were MAGA people enforcing it, I'm sure you could find something in my social media history that they could define as an incitement to hatred towards MAGA Americans. Like
that's what's so frustrating. That is the one thing that's so frustrating about like the kind of credulous U.S. media response to this sort of thing, or just like the whole disinformation thing over the last couple of years and everything. We're like, oh yeah, maybe it would be good if like we had more kind of like sane, reasonable people deciding what you can and can't say online or in real life. And meanwhile, like all of the levers of government have been seized by like the biggest cranks in the universe, and that's happening right now, right? I mean, like we're all seeing it happen, and yet we still have CBS going out and being like, well, isn't it interesting? Isn't this kind of like an interesting, like a curious, different way to run our country that we maybe should be taking a little bit of a look at? I don't know. They weren't quite that bad about it, but it was,
yeah. I'm open to different models, by the way. I don't know. Me and you might have a disagreement on this, but like I think algorithm rules are something I'm open to. I wish it was the companies doing it themselves. I don't think that we can trust the companies to regulate themselves. I think that like there is potentially something to be said. I think probably doesn't pass muster in the US, but if this was a Europe, kind of EU thing, and they're like, okay, we're going to let everybody post whatever they want. And if you follow people, you're going to be able to see whatever you want. But we're going to have certain limits on what can be boosted by the algorithm. I don't think that would pass muster here. But if there was a video about that in Europe, I would at least be like, okay, like I'm open to listening to that. There are different mores from different countries and different like commitments. But like going after individual people for their comments like feels like a really bad place to be. So I don't know if you have any algorithm thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't thought like very, very deeply about like the cure for what ails us. Like, if anything, I maybe have just even a more cynical view, which is that there is no fixing the kind of internet that we've created ourselves without like humongously dramatic change that basically would involve like firing the entire social media ecosystem into the sun. Which, I mean, I don't know. That's how we make our money is sharing our content on the same thing. So it's like, that wouldn't be very good for the Bulwark necessarily to have no more internet, but like,
I'd sacrifice. I'd sacrifice.
Exactly. That's one of them that you'd take. Let me give you like a real quick illustration. Just like, this is a very big swerve, but hopefully you'll bear with me. Like I was in the Capitol on January 6th, right? I was outside the Capitol on January 6th, and you had this big mob, and the mob meant ill. And like at the very beginning of kind of like the actual bad stuff going on, the cops were sort of like ineffectually like deploying little bits of like pepper spray here and there, and that just riled everybody up. Like that did not help. They did not actually control the energy of the crowd at all. And I feel it's sort of a similar way about these sort of like attempts to corral the sort of like destabilizing and reactionary and iconoclastic nature of the internet in particular, and just like human speech in particular, where like even if it weren't stupid on its face and like kind of evil on its face, why do you think it will work? Why do you think that you actually have the capacity to kind of like go around smacking down individual people, and you think that way you're going to curate like a nicer, kinder internet for everybody else? No, it just fans the flames of all of this stuff to where like these guys who have truly awful and vile and evil political views then get to basically just sort of hide under the guise of like, well, no, we're just free speech people, and make themselves much more palatable to a much broader audience because of this ineffectual and stupid and ridiculous kind of speech policing that you see in places like that. So that's how I see it. That's how I feel about it. Anyway.
We can't fight the bad autocrats with good autocrats, I guess would be the way that I would sum it up. So that's my thoughts on that video. I'm just going to tell you, when, my natural instinct when I see in my feed like performative anger from MAGA influencers who I follow is to be like, oh, well, these guys, this is going to be bullshit. And then I watched the video and I was like, it was kind of actually worse than how some of them were describing it. So anyway, bad job, Germans, in 60 Minutes. I disagree. Let freedom bloom.
3 cheers for the U.S. Europe. First Amendment.
3 cheers for the First Amendment.
We love our Constitution for as long as we're allowed to have it.
All right, everybody, we're going to be exercising our First Amendment right to say whatever the fuck we want, and to maybe even say something that might be construed as anti-MAGA American. That might even happen on this feed. And luckily, we're still free to do it for now. We'll see how that goes. Subscribe to the feed. We'll be seeing you guys soon. Peace.